Welcome to Her Life Unscripted podcast, inspiring burnt out, stressed out, and stretched thin women to embrace the unscriptedness of life. Hosted by Anna Osborne.
Hello, ladies, and welcome to Her Life Unscripted episode 48. It is 48. I swear you will hear in the recording of this week's interview that I say 49. I swear I'm not losing my mind. Well, maybe I am. But anyways, it is Her Life Unscripted episode 48, and I am your host, Anna Osborne, and I am just overjoyed to be here with all of you guys today. We have a whole nother hour of daylight with daylight savings happening this past weekend, and it is just beautiful outside. We've got a whole week of rain coming in, and so I'm enjoying the last few hours of sunshine before the storm actually rolls in, because there are some big black clouds starting to form off of the edge of town. So that is where I am at today. And it is also March Madness, which for me is just a beautiful, beautiful time of year. Obviously, most of you know that I'm a huge sports fan, and I went to University of Arizona, so I'm a huge Wildcat fan, and it is just a fun time to be enjoying basketball and just enjoying all the fun stuff that comes with literally 64 teams playing on opening weekend. So I'm excited, and yeah, that's where I'm at with everything. I also wanted to remind you ladies that at the end of March 31st is our last day for the discounted tickets for the Shine Retreat for women. So if you are at all interested about attending, but you've got some questions, I really encourage you to reach out to Mari and myself. You can email us to info@shineretreatforwomen.com, and we're happy to answer any questions. But you can also pop over. Mari created a really fun Facebook page called Shine Retreat for Women, and we're having lots of interaction and just lots of excitement coming for this retreat. I know the retreat isn't for a few months, but I do encourage you guys, if you're interested and wanting to attend, to make sure that you go to the website, shineretreatforwomen.com, and click on the registration link and get registered before the 31st, because we do have a nice discount going until the end of March. So that is Shine information. We are getting registrants, and we're starting to fill up, and it's really exciting, and I'm just super jazzed to meet all of you in person. But I want to share about one of our sponsors. We were so fortunate to have 4 different women business owners step up and offer to help support the Shine Retreat, and they gave money as a sponsor in order to kind of help offset the cost for participants. And so I spoke about Nicole Stoller-Peterson last week. So I just want to highlight one of our other sponsors, the wonderful and beautiful Gina Ballard. She was on the podcast back in the early episodes, episode 13. No, I'm sorry. She was episode 11, and her episode was absolutely one of the most popular ones. She just did a fantastic job with it, and I will be sure and include the link for her episode in the show notes so you guys have access to that. But what was so fun about Gina and I's interview is that I have known Gina since I was in elementary school, like kindergarten, first grade. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools, went to the same church growing up. And so she actually was my roommate when I was in grad school. So I have known Gina at all periods of my life. And she is just one of those beautiful, beautiful human beings that you can't get enough of her energy, because she is that amazing. And she is not only a feng shui consultant, but she's also an angel intuitive, and she just has this amazing gift. And if you're at all interested in learning how to work with her, I encourage you to go to her website, ginanicole.net. Again, that's ginanicole.net, N-E-T. And again, I'll have that link in the show notes. But she's just amazing. She has helped me with so many different things in my life, both personally and professionally. And her skill and her expertise is just second to none. And so I really encourage you guys to be able to, learn about her work and learn about her. And I'm just really blessed to have her in my life as a friend, but also that she was willing to support this retreat that Myra and I are doing and really give of her resources to help offset the cost for participants. So Gina Ballard is one of our amazing sponsors for the Shine Retreat. And I love you, G. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So that's our housekeeping information. But today we have a really, really fun episode. It is explicit a little bit, not too bad, but there are a few curse words in it. So be sure and put on some earbuds if you're listening with small kiddos around. But today I have Amber Hawley and Maelisa Hall on the podcast, and they are two women that are part of kind of my mastermind group, my tribe, and we've been talking about community all month. And so they kind of created this amazing concept around Maven Mentors and Masterminds, and really how that pertains to not only business, but also to our personal lives, and really why in particular it's important for women to have those Mavens, mentors, and masterminds at every point of their development, whether it's professional or personal. And I just love how they've kind of created this slogan and really be able to share of kind of their idea that has to do with, the tribe, the community, and why it's so important and why we need different aspects of it in our lives. So I'm just really, Amber and Maelisa are just amazing, and their energy is so fantastic. And they even had a freebie that they created for us, for my listeners. So I'll include that information in the show notes and then at the end of the interview as well. So you guys can go ahead and check that out. But they've got this great handout that's provided for us. And I'm just so excited about that because it's so generous of them. So I want to introduce the amazing Amber Hawley and the lovely Dr. Maelisa Hall. Amber is just one of the most radiant people that you will meet. She's got this heart of gold and this great energy, and she tells it how it is. And I just so appreciate her strength and her compassion and also her candidness. And you can find Amber at amberhawley.com. She's also the owner of Fremont Counseling Services and Couples Fix. So if you're interested in those, please do check them out. I'll include all that in the show notes. And then Dr. Maelisa Hall is also equally amazing, and she has the same dynamic energy that Amber does. And the two of them together are they blow you away. I was just at the edge of my seat during the entire interview. And Maelisa is got two businesses as well. She has QA Prep, which is a online community for folks, helpers, healers, to make paperwork less mind-numbing. She does such a great job with it. And so her business, qaprep.com, you can find online. But she also has a counseling center with herself, and she's got both online and in-person services. And so you can find that at hallcounseling.com as well. So that's how you get in touch with these lovely ladies. But I really just encourage you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the amazing dynamics of this conversation. And you'll get to hear about three of ours journey in finding each other and how we kind of all connected and how we really developed friendships, and really kind of Maelisa and Amber, how they're taking it to the next level with this Mavens, Mentors, and Masterminds, and how it really just connects so much with our whole month that we have dedicated to community. So without further ado, Amber and Maelisa. All right. I am so excited to have Amber Hawley and Maelisa Hall on the podcast today for episode 49. As you all know, March is the month of community, and we are just highlighting community from all different angles, including masterminds and tribes and villages and just all the amazing things that community can offer to us, especially as women. So I'm just so excited to have both of these women on the podcast today and just get to hear what the amazing projects they are working on, and also what community means for them and what it's been like for them on their journey. So welcome, ladies.
Thanks.
Awesome. So I gave you guys this formal introduction before we kind of started recording and things like that. But Maelisa, do you want to start with just kind of a quick introduction so the audience can kind of get to know you? I know I had the pleasure of having you on the podcast back in the day when I first started.
I know.
And I'm almost to the year mark. So it's been almost a year since you were on. If you can believe
congrats.
that. Thanks. So Maelisa, real quick, introduce yourself kind of through your own words so we can refresh the audience with who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I am a licensed psychologist in California, and I have two businesses. So I have a private practice, provide counseling for adults who are struggling with ADHD, and I do evaluations, and then I also do career counseling. And I like to offer services online. And I think my shtick is I kind of like doing things a little bit differently and pushing the envelope and trying out new strategies in the world of mental health. My other deal is I have an online business where I actually train therapists in how to do paperwork and how to make it something that's not a super boring, awful task that can feel manageable.
Fantastic. And I think that's one of the funny things when folks get into the helping, healing profession is they want to be doing that work, connecting with clients, and then they realize there's all that paperwork that goes with it. And so one thing that I so enjoy about what you do with QA Prep is that you make paperwork not so tedious and not so miserable so that we can, blast through it and really spend the time doing the clinical work that we love to do. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, I try.
You do a good job with it. Awesome. So Amber, introduce yourself and kind of share with the audience so they can kind of remember you and kind of hear a little bit about your work.
I'm Amber Hawley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist as well. I do have a private practice in Fremont, California, but I have 2 online businesses. One is couplesfix.com, which is an online resource for couples, just everything healthy relationships. And then amberhawley.com, which is my slogan there is I provide solutions for overwhelmed overachievers. So essentially myself, and then and all the people like me out there.
Absolutely. And I had the pleasure of having dinner with these ladies a few weeks ago, and we were talking about something, and I love what Amber puts out and her blogs and her quotes and things like that. And I had the privilege of, we were talking about something and trying to problem solve something, and this amazing quote came to my mind, and I had the privilege of sharing it with Amber, and Amber was like, holy crap, I said that. Don't put my words back on me. And it was fantastic because they're that brilliant.
It was a mic drop moment. I learned from you, learning from me.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. So when we think of this idea of community, I would love for you guys to just kind of take our listeners through your journey of community and kind of how you've developed it and what you guys call it, and just share a little bit about so they can kind of walk with you guys on it.
Yeah. Do you want to start, Maelisa?
Yeah, I will. I think for me, it's been an interesting journey. Amber and I are both extroverts, very much extroverts. And so community is important, not just in the sense of everyone needs community for connection and everything, but also like a daily basis. Having interpersonal interaction is also important. For me, I've always had a lot of friends, was fairly popular in high school, that kind of thing. In college, same kind of deal, created my own community. And then as you get older, it's like you're an adult, and then it's like it becomes harder to make friends, which seems so weird, and nobody tells you about that kind of thing until you're in it, right? And I don't have kids, so it's not like I'm going to like schools or sort of hanging out with other kids' parents, that kind of thing. So there was a brief period of time where I felt a little bit like I had my husband and we had our small, close-knit group of friends, but I felt like I needed something a little bit more. And thankfully, right around that time was when I decided to start my online business. So I started my online business before my private practice. And I found this group that was an online business bootcamp group and joined that. And Anna was in that with me the very first round of that a few years ago now. And through that group, I started meeting all these different people and reaching out and doing like brunches with people who are in the area. And these are people from all over the country, but really making an effort to reach out. And I am so thankful I found that group, because out of that group, I found all these other people and made all these other connections and have continued to make that an effort. I think because I saw a positive return from it right away. And because of that, I've never had the feeling that I hear so many other entrepreneurs or people who own private practices, things like that. People really commonly talk about feeling isolated. So they have this job, but they're on their computer all day or whatever. And I'm very thankful I have not had that experience at all in my business owner life, because I've had this amazing group of people. And I also feel like as I have increased my business and sort of up-leveled in different ways, I've also had other people come into my path. So like Anna getting to know you better and Amber getting to know Amber better. Those are things I was just putting myself out there and meeting people. And now I feel like I have this huge network and this awesome community of people who are friends, like people I can talk about random stuff with. And I was on the phone with Amber last night until like 11 p.m. like we were talking, or maybe later, I don't know, about random stuff. And then I also have people where I can, if I have a question about my business, I can throw something online or send someone an email and say, hey, will you check this out? Will you give me feedback? And that has been priceless. I mean, I feel like that has reduced my stress so much in business and helped me to enjoy what I'm doing a lot more.
Oh, it's such a fantastic way to describe it, because I think that, like you said, is that it does get harder to meet friends as you become an adult, and not having kind of those regular connections like school or sports or whatever it is that you might have had as a kid that really kind of bring those networks, those communities. And so really knowing that you have to be take the initiative and create that as an adult versus having it just kind of come to you because it's the kids in your class and that's who you invite to your birthday party. That is much more, right? It's much more intentional, and it's much more difficult in a lot of ways to find those commonalities or those links to create a network that really feels like you said, that turn into friendships.
Yeah. And it's been awesome having that. It's so priceless. It's worth putting in the effort to make sure that you get it done. And I think I did try out a few different things as far as, there were friendships that I kind of tested out that didn't work. And I think it's also not letting that get you down and continuing to pursue things and recognizing that certain friendships are for a season, or certain people have, different reasons for being in your life at different times. Not everybody's going to be there forever. And being able to adapt to that has been really helpful too.
Yeah, I think that part's super important. So, because we can get burned in friendships. And I think especially female friendships, those sometimes for people can be more difficult to navigate. And so when it feels like it's not the right fit or we've outgrown each other, of really being able to release that is, I think, an important part, and not let that discourage us from continuing to build that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Because for example, Amber, and what I know we want to talk about today, meeting Amber is something I never would have planned. And even a lot of us had a relationship online, right? Anna, I think I knew you online for 3 years before I met you in person or something crazy.
I know. I was just thinking that I think that the first boot camp was March of 2013.
Yes.
That's wild. That was 4 years ago. And yeah, we didn't meet for the first time until Vegas. And I was like, Maelisa, give me a hug. And it was there was no stranger. There was no stranger danger. It was we just knew each other. It was so amazing. Yeah. Absolutely. So Amber, share a little bit about kind of your thoughts, but also your journey of what it's been like to be able to create that network of people that isn't just, business associates. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah. And pretty much everything Maelisa said, I feel that same way. Community has always been really important to me. And I've never felt that isolation that I think so many, again, entrepreneurs or business owners that talk about, or even adults, because I see that with my clients, and I talk about that whole reason, season, lifetime. But it is difficult to meet people in those ways. But it's just that it's kind of if you put yourself out there, you just never know who you get connected to, and there's going to be people that you meet them and you spend time and you're like, okay, not my people, and then you find other people and you're okay, this is my person. These are people that I relate to and I feel connected with, and that's kind of the story of the 10 of us. I think you said you've shared with your audience
a little bit, but share it in your words. I want to hear how you experienced it from where you sat with kind of that journey.
Sure. Well, and I think so. Maelisa and I kind of have this. We're really going out and kind of talking about, we call it Mavens, Mentors, and Masterminds, and just kind of the different levels of connection and how people do create community. And this is more specifically probably around the business, part of things, but business and friendship, they go hand in hand at times. But yeah, we were talking about, it's so weird because we went to this event a couple years ago, and that's where I met you it was 2 years ago in person at this weekend retreat thing. And Maelisa wasn't there, but then afterwards we started a book club, and we were reading Denise Duffield Thomas's Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. There you go. There's your explicit.
We now made the explicit reading.
We already hit the explicit part. And so we were reading that, and by pure happenstance, Maelisa gets added to the group because it was all a group of the people that went to that one event, and she got added.
It was not happenstance, actually.
Really?
Because at the time, Denise Duffield Thomas was, the woman who wrote this book, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, was promoting a program that she has that's very similar to the book. The program was very expensive, and she was going to raise the price dramatically after this promotional period. And so I was really considering getting the program, but then I told another friend who had also gone to this conference with you. I was like, well, she says that everything is in her book. I was like, we just need to do a book club. And then this friend was like, well, we already started one. She's like, there is a book club. And she was like, so why don't you want me to see if everyone's okay with me adding you into the book club? And I was like, yes.
That's so funny.
Well, I think that sounds like fate. It was fate. You needed to be in that group. It was so the kismet, right? Yeah. So you get added into the group, and then we're doing, we're reading the book for a little bit, and, eventually that part it's still there. We still sometimes use it. It fizzled a little. But then we decided like we want to go and have this what we call the GSD week. We want this get shit done week where we go and work on our businesses independently, but get away from our regular day-to-day lives and all of the responsibilities, but have this place where there's other female entrepreneurs who can give us feedback and support and, also have fun, of course. And we decided to do it in Vegas. So 10 of us out of that group, which was like 25, 30 people, something like that, self-selected to go to Vegas. And Maelisa was one of the 10 who she's probably the bravest because she was the only one who hadn't met anyone in person.
Yes, that's so true. And I love that we went to Vegas because like we're saying, we want to work on our businesses and we want to like focus. We want to like just let go of the outside noise and all these things like you just described. And we're like, let's pick Vegas. Like, so we picked Vegas, or whoever was the selector picked Vegas, which I still don't know exactly why, but we rented this giant mansion off the strip where I think we left once, like over the course. I mean, we went to the grocery store and like get more wine and things like that. But otherwise, like we went down to the strip once for dinner. Like,
that's not your typical Vegas trip. I mean, I feel like, yes, people would make an assumption, but we did really well on focusing.
Yes, I agree. But I think that part of it is really connects to what you're saying, Maelisa, is that, and I think that, you guys are both extroverted, I'm extroverted. And so when we put ourselves out there and say, hey, I'm interested in this, or hey, I want to learn more about that, it's just kind of that's in our comfort zone. So even though it's a risk, the risk is different versus somebody who's introverted, and taking that risk is so much bigger because that's just not how they naturally kind of move into that space or could not naturally move. So I think that selecting and saying, hey, I'm willing to go to Vegas sounds like a huge leap for some people. And then for others, it's like, well, that just kind of is the next progression of where we're really taking this thing.
Absolutely. And I think, recently when we did a poll of the 10 women, only 2 of us are introverts. So the rest of us are extroverts, which makes sense given, like, again, it is a risk. So those brave souls who said, okay, I don't know these people. I mean, I know them online, but I'm going to take that risk and go for it. But it was amazing.
I know. Can I tell my funny story about
that story?
Oh, yes. Okay, good. This is what I was going to ask, something about this, but tell this story. It's better.
So to me, this felt very natural because I think we were really active in that book club, and we were all talking a lot about the topics of the book, but then other things in our businesses. And I don't know, I hadn't met you all in person, but I felt like I knew you all decently well. And I don't know, you're all professionals, and I know other people who know you. And
you all have a website, so you had to have credibility.
Right. You have a website, so you must be real.
Right.
You're verified by Yelp.
Yeah. But I gave somebody a check for, $500 to put down a deposit for this place in Vegas.
It got cashed.
And so I think it was a month before our trip. I was traveling and I got stuck in the Denver airport for like 5 hours or something, as one does when you have a layover in Denver. And I was talking to some guy at the bar, and he was also somebody who travels a lot for work. And so this was like typical for him to just kind of meet people and talk. And I don't even remember how it came up, but I said, oh, well, I'm traveling again next month. I'm going to Las Vegas, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling him about what we were doing. I just thought it was really cool. It was so exciting. And he looked like really worried. And he was like, so you might want to be careful with that, because people you meet online. And he starts to give me like this fatherly lecture about meeting people online and like going to Vegas and, living with random people. And I was like, no, I swear they're like professionals and I know other people who know them. And so I don't think until that point that I had even realized what we were doing or how unique it might be. And that's when I was kind of like, wow, I think we really do have something special here. Mm-hmm. And then it happened, and it definitely was special. But I think that's when I first realized, like, hey, this is kind of different.
I love that story because it is so true of you just say yes, right? You just say yes and then realize kind of midway through, like, wow, this is something really big that we're creating. And then, like you said, when we all came together and kind of the magic happened, and it was like, wow, this really is part of something really, really neat.
Absolutely.
So this idea of Mavens, Mentors, and Masterminds. So share with me and share with the audience, kind of as you talk about those levels, what do those mean? What do they mean? And how would you describe kind of those different levels?
Sure. I'll start with So the Mavens part, the reason we came up with that is, so the book was called The Money Maven, or I mean, the Facebook group for that book club was the Money Mavens. And then we became the GSD Mavens because we were the 10 that were going to go have the Vegas trip, which we now, it's our annual trip, right? And so we were looking at Mavens is kind of like synonymous with tribe in the way that we're looking at it. And, tribe is something that's talked about a lot lately and, lots of great books written about that. And so the idea of bringing people together who have this like-mindedness, not that they're all the same, but there's like-mindedness, something that draws you together, that reason, and building that connection. And it's about having the Mavens particularly are, it's smaller so that there is this like safety and containment in it. It's not like having an audience. It's having this small group and, kind of that structure. But it's very different than, say, like having a mentor or having a mastermind. And then within the Mavens, I think what we noticed, and I had this, one of the other 10 women that went on the trip was a really good friend of mine. And I would call her, my biz bestie. And we would talk all the time, nightly, and sometimes, till 1, 2 in the morning, and giving each other support and feedback around, marketing and website stuff and just, logistics of running your business. And so she came with, and then, we go there, and again, you're just going to click with certain people. And out of that, like meeting Maelisa, I think for me was one of the highlights. I mean, there were many highlights, but like developing that biz bestie relationship with her as well. Like that's the value of it. I think it's important to have like a bigger group so that, it's just like a social support network. You don't just want one person. You shouldn't just have your husband or just have a best friend or, you should have more people, but they're naturally going to develop like closer bonds with certain people. And so that's where like kind of the biz bestie part of that came out.
Yeah, I think, I obviously, you guys, Cami has been, a huge, huge friend and support in my life and has become a biz bestie. And it goes so much beyond just, the entrepreneurial, keeping the energy up and the business side of things, but it's also to be able to lean on when the professional stuff or the personal stuff is getting coming up and creating exhaustion and making it hard to do the professional stuff. And so it really is, yes, that connection is around business, but it's so far, much more far reaching than that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's like once you get to that point where you've really built that trust with somebody, and I think it's important to be thoughtful and selective about that. I guess being a therapist, I've seen too many people rush in with like full disclosure and completely making themselves vulnerable before anyone's earned it. And then, kind of regretting that. But I think when you meet people and you have that connection and you slowly grow that, and then there develops that friendship and certainly like, I think all parts of our life, we talk about all parts of our lives. It's not just the business side. It's absolutely everything. And it's that person, that I feel like I can call for any, whatever thing. And it's absolutely invaluable. And I'm fortunate enough to have, so many people in my life, especially, all 10 Mavens and then extended people around in my area, but then to have those close friendships too, where, you could call them up for whatever it is that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you guys learning as you're kind of exploring this, Mavens, Mentors, and Masterminds? What are you learning about just the importance of it, but also some of the struggles around it? What are you guys kind of learning as you're developing this idea and really kind of diving into it?
Well, I think the things that I sort of think off the top of my head are that those strengths that Amber was just pointing out can also become, just like anything, right? Also the weaknesses. So as you figure out different people that you connect with more, then you also have other people in the group that maybe you don't connect with quite as much or who you just don't talk to quite as much. Also, a lot of us, like in this group in particular, these 10 of us, we're spread out geographically, and a lot of us have a different kind of focus in our practice. So there are certain people I simply may not reach out to quite as often because what they're doing is different from what I'm doing, or because something that I'm working on is something maybe that Amber has already done, and I know she's already done it, and so I'm going to go and ask her. So there are times where I post, so we have our still ongoing Facebook group. So there are times where I'll post in the Facebook group because it's something I want like general eyes on, and I want a few different people's opinions. And in some ways, Amber and I can be very, very similar. So there are times when for us, that is really good because we can understand one another so easily. Like, I think that's when I called her, or she called me last night, and I was saying like, oh, I know she'll get this, because I was making my dinner at 10 p.m. And I knew that she'd know exactly why that was happening and get it and all that stuff. And other people in the group would be like, what is wrong with you? But at the same time, there are also times where, because we can be very similar, I think that we're both smart and critical thinkers, but I will be maybe less critical of an idea she has when she needs it. So she knows, okay, I can ask Maelisa, but I also need to ask somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
and to see if that's really a good idea. Or there's one person in our group, Lorena, and there was something that a few of us were looking into, another, I don't know what you would call it, but like a business club kind of thing. And I knew that Amber was kind of excited about it and somebody else was excited about it. And I was excited about it, but I get excited about a lot of things, right? And I know Amber gets excited about a lot of things. So I was like, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. But then Lorena, who's in our group, she's very different. She's one of the introverts, and I know that if she gets excited about something, she's really put careful thought into it, and she's not a shiny object kind of person, right? So then she gave some feedback, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that sort of like gave me the seal of approval.
Absolutely. When she did that, I was like, oh, I'm in. If Lorena thinks it's a good idea, because she is so thoughtful about things, I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea.
That's such a fantastic. Well, it's good to realize, like you said, Amber, a moment ago too, is that a tribe is not a bunch of people that all think the exact same. They've got, different aspects to it. Yes, there's a common thread. And I think that speaks to it, Maelisa, of saying, yes, there's those commonalities, but our differences actually help strengthen the way that we get feedback, we give feedback, the way that we are able to kind of get those encouragements versus more the constructive criticism. Like that really does enhance the power of the group.
Absolutely. And to also speak, well, you said the challenges. I mean, I think sometimes the challenge can be in a group like that is not getting the critical feedback, like people not wanting to hurt people's feelings. So I think that's the nice part about developing like deeper trust, which is why, like the bigger the group, this is a psychological like reality, is the bigger the group, the less there's the safety and trust. And you can still have big groups that have safety and trust, but that's why having the 10 of us is really so great, because there's a containment to it. And even then though, there's those times where you're like, I really want critical feedback because I do have shiny object syndrome and I get really excited about things and I want things to look great when I put them out there. And so, having those people that you develop those deeper relationships with, they can give you feedback and you can really take it. Like I think about the original, Biz Bestie, I was talking about Malaya, who is part of the group. That's the one thing, we are so different, her and I. And the thing that I love though is, even if we bump heads a little bit, like I really value her feedback, and I know that it always comes from a great place. So she has, she has shot down some of my ideas, but I really appreciate it because like she's keeping me a little more centered, because I tend to get really excited, which I think is an ADHD thing. And so and personality thing. But so I do value that. But sometimes it's hard for people to find those people in their lives. That's my experience as a therapist when I think about people who are having struggles in their relationships and friendships, or even talking to other entrepreneurs, like being able to really take that critical feedback. I think one, that's what's going to help you grow as a person and as a business owner, but that can be a challenging thing to find somebody who can give you that feedback in a way that works for you.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that you ladies are part of very similar groups, but there are a number of Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and some are focused on just the entrepreneurial journey, and some, on the community I live in, and some is, just a bunch of psychotherapists. And it is so interesting too, of seeing what people will put out there and the feedback they'll get. And then they'll get feedback that feels constructive, but it is much more direct. And then you'll see the original person that posted kind of go, well, that hurt, that stung, like that ability to take that feedback in isn't there. And it really is, like you said, the number of the group gets bigger and bigger, and you've got hundreds and thousands of people in a group. And it's hard to have trust that you can, I know you've got my heart in mind, or I know you've got my best interest. And so you're sharing this with me out of that. And I trust that relationship versus you're some person that I'm part of a 3,000 member Facebook group and I put this question out there and you give me feedback and it's like, ouch, that hurts. I don't even know you well enough for you to talk to me like that. But it could be the same exact thing that you're being told by somebody you really trust, and you can really take that in then.
Yeah. I also think that's where people need to realize, don't ask for feedback if you don't want it. If you want support and cheerleading, ask for support and cheerleading. I think that's also a problem, right? Like if you want to grow and you want that feedback, I mean, not that it won't sting. Let me tell you, Malaya, like that sometimes stings. But I do feel I take it in because I know it is coming from a loving place, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you trust it. Like you said, she knows you and she knows your heart and she wants your best interest. And so she can give that feedback as something to help grow.
Yeah. And I think she's, with all of us, it's also knowing about the people who are giving you feedback. So if you post in some random group and some random person you don't even know makes a comment, you're also kind of thinking like, well, what do they know? Like they're giving me this feedback, but where is it coming from? What kind of experience do they have? And obviously, if you hear 100 people giving you the same kind of feedback, then maybe you should listen to it. But there is also that thing. In fact, when I opened my private practice and I was picking out office furniture, I had these, I think it was just 2 or 3 couches that I had narrowed it down to. And I had a whole look that I wanted and everything. And so I crowdsourced it, right? I just posted on Facebook like, hey, which couch do you guys like? And really the one that I wanted was more expensive. And so that's why I wasn't automatically getting it. But I didn't say that in the Facebook post. And more people liked the one that I didn't want to get, right? And I was kind of disappointed. I was like, oh, man. But I was like, well, I'll listen to the masses. And then it was so funny because right when I was feeling like, oh, I'm disappointed, like I wanted the other one, Amber and someone else, Nicole, who's also in our group. So both of these people who I know have good taste because I know them, because I've seen their offices, things like that. They both texted me, within 10 minutes of one another. It was so random, saying, hey, be careful about the feedback you're getting. And one of them, I don't remember which one, said not everybody has good taste. And and they were basically they were giving me permission to go against the masses, but they were highlighting who was giving the feedback, right? Because they're both reminding me don't just listen to any random person about what furniture to buy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also too that, that question is kind of different of which one do you like best when you've got in your mind what you want it to be versus, Amber, what you said a moment ago. If you want support saying, hey, this couch is expensive, help me justify this purchase, right? That is where you say, I'm looking for support. I'm looking for validation to spend this chunk of change. So just tell me it's okay. And everybody's like, yes.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so, so our thought about that, why we had the 3 different categories is, so the Mavens, the tribes, those, they can be bigger, they can be smaller, like ours is a little, a contained tribe. And those things, usually, again, I'm going to call it happenstance, maybe there's another word, but you've self-selected or you've come to these things for a certain reason. But I think the idea of mentors and masterminds, to me, it's a different level of thoughtfulness and a different level of commitment, those kinds of things. When you're looking to grow to those next levels and you're looking for that kind of community, again, we're speaking about business stuff here, but that would be the thing where you have to be more thoughtful about that. You still want diversity because you do want different perspectives, of course, absolutely. But you also want to make sure that you are pre-qualifying those opinions, because you don't want people who let me give you marketing feedback or, how to grow your business to the next level from somebody who hasn't even started their business, or from somebody who, you look at their stuff, it's not showing up as well as you would like. You want to make sure that everybody's kind of, not that everyone's at the same level, because again, there's different perspectives, but that you have kind of the same drive. And I think, Maelisa, you had talked about before, the pace or something about the pace.
Yeah. Another business podcast that I listened to, someone was talking about that specifically with the pace, and are you all going at the same level? So if you're someone who has a side business and you're kind of hey, I just have this chill side business, want to make a little bit of extra income on the side, but I really want to focus on my family. I don't want this to be a career thing. That's totally different from someone who is actively growing a business that they want to sell, or that where they want to hire people and do different things, so that's completely different. And you wouldn't want those 2 people to be in a mastermind group together, because they're going to hold one another back and they're not going to see eye to eye on those things. And they're going to have a completely different strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I went, Cammie and I actually went last week and I saw Dave Ramsey live speaking, which was really cool. And then the following day he did Christy Wright did a day-long business boutique for just women, which was really, really neat because the way that she spoke about female business owners was obviously so spot on, but it just really highlighted the different ways that women approach business versus men. And I loved hearing that because I know it spoke to, there was 1,500 women there and it spoke to us so differently versus if it had been just general business information. Anyways, Dave Ramsey was the host and she was kind of the big headliner. Anyways, so she had 3 phases. She had dreamer, which is, I want to have an idea. I want to create something. They're all dreams, but nothing is turned into a product or a service, right? And then she had a middle one, and I can't remember what that was, but it was something like, I've got the idea, but I don't know how to run with it yet. Like I need all my policies, my procedures, I need all that stuff in place, but I've got this idea for this great product or service. And then the last category was the builders they actively are selling or, performing that service or product, and they just want to take it to the next level. So it's grown here, but I want to, kind of leverage it up or up level it. And so they did like a small little lunch with just her and Dave. And there was like 50 of us in this lunch, like a little Q&A VIP sort of situation with your wilted salad and your, but anyway, so, and you got to ask some questions, right? But it was really cool kind of being, kind of in this more intimate setting. And what she said is the one place that with doing this business boutique, and they do a 1-day and a 3-day, and it was really great. I got so much good, just good different ways of hearing the same information, but just really good nuggets from it, is that she said that it's that third level that they know they're missing the mark with, because the dreamers, they can inspire and get them organized. That middle ground, they can help them create the policies to really kind of launch that product. But the last group, the builder group, is where they realize that this business boutique, this day-long thing, is not capturing what folks that show up to that need. And so Cammie and I showed up and we really enjoyed it. And we got some, new spins on old information, and I'm excited to follow her. And she was just an amazing speaker. And I can't say enough good things about her work and how she really conceptualizes female business owners. But I did leave kind of going, oh, I needed a little bit more. And so I did appreciate that in that small little breakout, she addressed that and said, hey, that's something that's in development, and we will get there. But right now we have realized that is a gap. And so that's what you're talking about, this mastermind, right? Of being on that same pace. And so it kind of validated, that experience I was having, but it also made me really respect her, that as she's launching her book and doing these amazing things, she's also saying, hey, this is the next thing to come, rather than kind of that one size fits all, this is great for everybody approach. Yeah. So anyway,
that she can own that piece, because I do think that is a piece that's missing. And like Maelisa said, even within those builders, then there's going to be people that they want it to be their side hustle and maybe eventually their full thing, or I've heard a couple of different podcasters talk about business building people that I follow talk about the idea of having it be, kind of like a personal brand versus these multi-million-dollar companies. And that one really struck me. I thought about that. It was Chris Ducker and Pat Flynn were talking about it. And I was like, wow, because I realize I think about that a lot as I'm juggling, being a mom of 3 kids and having businesses. And I'm doing these things where it's really important to me to be able to hang out with the kids and do these fun crafts and stuff like that. And then I think, I wonder if a CEO of a Fortune 500 company would be caring about this stuff at all. So even within, I feel I'm really ambitious and I do want to keep growing my businesses and doing so much. I realize though, I'm like, boy, I think that I'm a personal brand person, because I don't want to be doing a 60-hour corporate work week. I mean, even if it's my business, I want to find those ways of still balancing that with my family. And I think that is the uniqueness maybe of a lot of female entrepreneurs, and not all, of course. There are very those hardcore long work week kind of people. Not that I don't put in long hours, but it is a different perspective, a different way of doing it. But I do notice that, when we talk about the mentors, there are so many people that have been mentors for me that either they were out there as business builders that I look up to. I think about Marie Forleo was one of the first ones, and I had to tell everybody about her. I'm like, she's amazing. And for a long time, she really felt like a mentor, even though I never met her. And then I have those mentors that I know personally, in like in an online business, Melissa's a mentor to me because my first business was, a private practice, a brick and mortar private practice. And so, and then opposite, like now she's growing her practice, like I have that experience. And so I think that's the additional part that makes us like a really good fit for each other, is because we're both growing in those different ways. So we can support each other. We've been there, done that, but then we're both, expanding. And then I've also been a mentor to other people. Like there are people building private practices that they just want to be that one person. They don't want a group practice. They're starting out, they're growing, and I can be a mentor to them, but that's not the person I'm going to want in my mastermind, because they're not going to help me grow. And it's great. I'll be a mentor. I love it. I love helping those people, but I want somebody who's going to help me grow in that mastermind. And that's where it's not about being exclusive or, not caring, but there's a difference between having the Mavens group where it's like there's a lot of friendships and fun and people kind of do their own thing, and a mastermind where you're specifically saying, this is our focus, this is our goal, there's accountability, and there's a commitment here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that kind of highlights too the difference between the masterminds and mentors, which is you don't necessarily have to have everyone in your mastermind group that have been ahead of you and done something that you want to do now, right? Because you can work through a lot of things together. It's more about giving one another feedback, giving one another accountability, but also being on that same pace, that same pacing level. Whereas a mentor, like inherent in having a mentor is someone who's already done what you want to do. They have to have had that experience to mentor you through it, whether it's parenting, whether it's being a married person, or whether it's starting a business, whatever it is, I think mentors are people that you're looking up to because you've seen them have some sort of success in something that you want to attain.
Yeah. And you can connect to it, right? Like they've got the credibility that they've gone through the hard work to get there, rather than they just say, oh, well, it was all luck, or, like you can really connect with their struggle, their journey, the blood, sweat, and tears, and those sorts of things. So I know we're really talking about this in an entrepreneurial way, and I love that. And I love being able to talk to the two of you guys from kind of that business aspect. But there's so much that we're talking about that I feel like does apply to, kind of the female relationships, and whether it's through the parenting years or the married years and those sorts of things. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that real quick, because it just feels like there's such a translation. And Amber, you said it when we first started, those friendships or those connections that are the reason, the season, the lifetime, and really being able to evaluate that from a business perspective, an entrepreneurial perspective, or just a personal relationship perspective of giving ourselves permission to outgrow friendships or to outgrow mentors. And I think about the mentors that have been important in my life, and there is a huge loyalty that I have because of what they've helped me achieve. And then also really wanting that separation to be something that is, in my, optimistic world, my Pollyanna world, that it's encouraging and loving. And I'm so glad you outgrew me. That means you did what you were wanting to do, rather than feeling like there is this disloyalty or there's this resentment that, that relationship has changed. And I think that sometimes for me, that's been sticky I want it to be this really encouraging graduation from what you were offering or what you shared with me, because look, I've done it, and look I don't need this part anymore. Now I need something else. So I don't know if you guys have experienced that.
If you're in a profession, like if you're working at a job, it is just as important to consider all these things. And I think especially as women, we don't encourage that as much. In entrepreneurial circles, I feel like we're talking about it a lot more. But when I was working in a corporate job, these principles were just as important. And I had a boss where when I moved into quality improvement, doing this training stuff and helping therapists with paperwork, she was the corporate director, and she saw in me the leadership potential, and she saw in me a lot of potential. And when we met for our weekly or biweekly or whatever it was supervision meetings, she would bring those things up to me. And she even told me very early on, you are going to get bored in this job. So I want you to think about that now and tell me what you need to challenge you, and tell me what you need, to make things interesting, and let's discover projects, and let's find a way for you to grow professionally while you're here. And I love that she recognized that. And she was definitely the best boss that I've ever had, but she really did use her role to be a mentor to me. And when I did leave that job and then became a manager, she was happy for me. And she was very excited that I was doing that. She knew it, she expected it. And she was willing to talk with me about, okay, now you're going to transition to this new type of role. What does that look like? So you can have the exact same thing in a corporate career. Absolutely.
And hang on one second before, because Amber, I want to hear, but we're up against the hour. Do you guys need to run, or do you have a little bit longer? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. But Amber, share. I want to hear kind of your experience with it.
Yeah. And to go back to the idea about just the friendship part, I mean, yes, in business, I've had that where like when I wanted to grow and I went to move on a place, I had a boss who just stopped talking to me.
Oh, wow.
She was done. And so it was
shun.
Those things where you're like, what's going on? And I think I see that also unfortunately in those female relationships too. And I think there's a distinction between a role model and a mentor, because a mentor is somebody who's giving you that feedback and there's that back and forth discussion, or, well, sometimes it's just one way, right? Like when someone's an online mentor. But yeah, I think the difference is when you find a really good mentor, they're not somebody who thinks like they're better than you because they've been there, done that, or grown. They just realize like they're in a different phase, because nobody's perfect. We're all human, right? And so, the idea that, oh, they've outgrown me, or now, they're ungrateful, or they think they're better than me. And it's like, well, that's not what it's about. So like anything, it's about finding those people who have the right intention, kind of like Melissa's boss did. They have the right intention, and that the idea is they're supporting you in that way that's really healthy, as opposed to supporting you in a way that is like codependent, or like, I need someone to really look up to me. And so when that ends, that's going to be bad for me. And so that's one of those things about being selective. Brene Brown talks about this a lot, about people having to earn that trust. And so it's important to be vulnerable, because this is how we grow, but it's also important to be thoughtful about who you're putting that energy and vulnerability into.
Yeah, I think that's such a great reminder. And like you said, that, kind of Brene Brown, her smash and grab, that there are people who just throw everything out there and they're super vulnerable. And they, it's like when you smash a car window and grab the person, run. And that it's like, boom, here's all my vulnerability. Here's all my, my TMI, my overshare. And then devastated because nobody was vulnerable back, or because it was too early. And so like, I think just giving permission to like ease in and create that credibility and that trust and that know, in order to really see whether or not it has substance and has utility in what you're needing from the relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me where this journey is taking you, ladies, with the Mavens, Mentors, and Masterminds. Like, I love the idea. I love how the two of you speak of it, and the energy that the two of you guys have around it is just like contagious. I feel like, I'm just like hardly sitting still here. But tell me kind of what this will be, or what you want to have happen with this amazing just way that you guys are describing this experience.
For me, I think why it's so important to me is because I am a part of a lot of groups, both networking groups, in-person networking groups, and then online stuff, Facebook groups and such. And I see so many people who are feeling so isolated and feeling like they don't have that support system. And you see them oversharing inappropriately in places where they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But also, as the therapist, like, my heart breaks for them, because I also realize the struggle of, like you said, even just having in-person relationships, girlfriendships that are really, truly healthy and supportive. It can be hard as an adult to find those things, because we do grow, and we, are in different life phases from our friends maybe that we grew up with and such. And so I think I feel so blessed that I've had that, and I've created that. I've put effort into it, but I know it's not as easy as it is, especially if you're not an extrovert. But even still, it's just, there is a little bit of luck, right? Sometimes. But I want to have people feel supported in finding those relationships that enhance their life and make them feel supported. And I think the fact that we are therapists and we understand relationships, we're relationship experts. So we realize, what are the red flags to look out for? What are the ways to thoughtfully take this approach, but still not lose the momentum and be excited about things? And so sharing that knowledge, I think, is really valuable, because we do get a lot of training around building relationships.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's been such a really like a life-changing experience, to have all of this and have all of this as I was starting my business. I don't know if I would have been successful without this community aspect that also built up at the same time. So, and a lot of times I have these online mentors as well, and I love listening to a lot of them, but sometimes they do miss this whole mark on female relationships and on women being entrepreneurs, or when they interview women who are business owners or entrepreneurs or whatever, it's all about, which would apply to anyone who has a job, like, oh, how do you do it all? How are you managing this, this, and this? And they ask different questions than they ask the men. And it like really irritates me. But I want to be a support for other women because it has been so impactful for me. And I would like other women to be able to create this based on whatever they need. You know, if they need the Maven, the mentor, the mastermind at that time, or a little bit of both, all three or whatever, but to have the steps to figure out how to do it. Because I feel like we sort of fell into it, but as we put thought into how it all occurred, that we have some good ideas for how you can create that and lessons we've learned in this whole process.
Yeah. And it is a blend of, like you said, kind of that happenstance and kind of following into it. But there's also been the intentionality and the risks that have been taken in terms of deepening the relationships and creating it to be what it is. And that all took a lot of vulnerability and a lot of trust and kind of faith in that aspect. As I'm listening to this, it's super exciting. It gets me so jazzed up. And I'm just so I know that this is speaking to an audience that is so much in need. And it's something that I get really excited about. But I also think about kind of if somebody's listening to this and if they're more introverted and they're more just nervous about making that first step, but they know so deep in their heart that they need to create that community, that whether it's a Maven, a mentor, or a mastermind, they need that. And so what would be the words that you would offer to kind of bridge that gap, to kind of help them as they take these first little steps, kind of put their toe in the water?
So I will say one thing is, being online makes it a lot easier. You can find different things. Also, one thing with introverts, because I'm really into like the Myers-Briggs and all these personality types and all that good stuff, is that introverts tend to, because being with people can be more exhausting, really appreciate more in-depth communication. So I would say once you develop this, which can be the difficult part, it can actually be quite refreshing because your relationships are more focused, and so once you create this relationship, it's not something that's based on small talk and just getting together for the sake of getting together. It has a real purpose and you have some meaning behind it. So we have a handout that we'd like to share with your audience, and it is Mavens, Mentors, and Masterminds, a step-by-step guide to creating your community and finding your biz bestie.
Fantastic. Where can they find it at? And I'll include the links in the show notes too, so all of you guys listening will be able to just click on it and go to it. But share it for those people that are not driving and can write it down.
Yes, it would be at amberhawley.com/Her Life Unscripted. And so we'll have the downloadable there for you, for everyone. And, going back to the introverted thing, the other thing is that's why you kind of have to determine which one of these is the best for you. And for a lot of introverts, the biz bestie might be the thing that they find most valuable because there is that depth in that relationship. That being said, I know a lot of introverts that are extremely social. So it's not, not necessarily like a one size fits all. It's really finding what fits for you and kind of where you're at in your business and your life, because if your life is particularly crazy, you might not have the energy or the stamina for the mastermind level of commitment or, being in a whole bunch of groups. You might need to narrow that focus.
I will say that when I look at key points or key times when things have sort of shifted for me, I can always bring it back to a time when I was willing to share a little bit. So maybe not, that full-on vulnerability, but it was a time when I was willing to say, hey, I have ADHD and here's how I found out and here's what's going on. And that is really what kind of helped Amber and I to connect a lot more on a deeper level. And it was a time when I was willing to say, reach out and say, hey, I want to do a book club. Let's do a book club. And then someone said, we already have one. Here, come join ours. I would say don't be afraid if you are an introvert to at least take those little steps and reach out and share a little bit of something or ask someone something. And you never know what can happen from that.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Anything last things you ladies want to add before we kind of wrap? I just am so appreciative of this conversation. And I get to see you ladies in 5 weeks for our GSD year 2. We're coming out of our rookie year, ready to go into the pros.
The second
bigger and better.
Very exciting. I can't wait.
So any last things you guys want to add before we kind of wrap up?
Yeah, it's just about putting yourself out there and taking steps to get it done and testing the waters.
Testing the waters.
And I guess the one thing I'll add is, thinking about those people who may have felt like they've been burned by so many relationships, or they just feel like it's too hard to trust, and and they may genuinely have been through so many things and just like, oh, I don't know if I want to risk it. Again, do it in those small ways and, step by step. So just because you reach out to somebody and you start spending time with them, and then you realize like, oh, this isn't really a good fit. Like they're a nice person, but whatever it is, like it raises your red flag or the hairs on your back or something, or it just doesn't seem like it's a good match. Don't be afraid to just like thoughtfully remove yourself from that situation. There are many ways that you can do that in a non-aggressive way and not just disappearing, but you got to think about your time is valuable. I talk to people about this all the time, between, your families and your work and your life and everything else that's going on, don't put time into people that aren't the right match for you, or feel like they just take your energy and it's a drain, or they're not at that same space. Don't be afraid to take back that time, because I think it's really important to find those people, and it can be afraid to risk it. But if you haven't given so much of yourself, it's easier to take that step back. But it's also important to not just have the walls up.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time. And thank you so much for just giving of your expertise. I'm excited, especially this month, as we're talking about community, to just dive into this idea of mavens and mentors and masterminds. And oh my. So anyways, thank you, the two of you. And I can't wait to see you guys in person in 5 weeks in the sun of San Diego. So just for the record, we're not going back to Vegas.
But we'll be on the beach.
We'll be on the beach.
We'll be on the beach. We're going to be world travelers. Every year it'll be different. But yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. I hope your audience finds this valuable. And thank you, Anna.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies. Talk to you soon. Well, that energy coming off of that interview was so much fun. I just absolutely adore Amber and Maelisa. And you can probably see why there has been this connection with them, and also why they are such an asset to this group that has been created throughout of just being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm in need of support, and all those amazing things that happen when we ask for help and take risks. And quite honestly, I love how Maelisa points that out. I think that there is a part of us that in order for things to change or be different in our world, in our community, in our households, we have to risk and be willing to ask for help. And what I love so much about this month that we're highlighting this idea of tribe or village or community is that in order for those connections to be made, we have to reach. We have to step past the fear and towards each other. And I know that initially when I met Amber and Maelisa, I was really impressed with them as just women and as business owners. And now I have just this admiration for them as people, because they have let me in and I have let them in different ways, not just professionally. And the rewards of that, the benefits of that have so just enhanced my life. And I know that when I need support, these are two great women that I can go to. And honestly, I'm just totally humbled that for this month where we're talking about community and the importance of community, that both Maelisa and Amber were willing to come on the podcast, because they were already on before and they were, again, generous with their time and willing to reach out. So just a lot of gratitude for them. One thing that I think was so important, and I want to highlight and kind of come back to, that Amber spoke about, is this idea that sometimes when a group is too big, it can be really overwhelming, and it actually can be harder for safety and trust to be built because the group is so large. And I think that that piece is really important for us to slow down for a moment around, because oftentimes we can come into groups that are huge. I actually did a live feed this past Monday about these big events that I attended. One was 1,500 women and one was 2,000 women. So I encourage you to go over to the Facebook page, Her Life Unscripted, and check out that live feed, because I kind of go into it. But what I found was I was so inspired and I was so motivated, but I was left wanting more connection, something kind of a little bit more slowed down, a little bit more intimate, because although I was inspired by what these speakers were talking about, these women speakers, female speakers, I also felt a little overwhelmed by the enormity of the groups. And so just, happenstance that Amber brought that up when we were talking. And honestly, it's something that really stands out to me thinking about the ways that I get connection. I am definitely an extrovert and I enjoy people. I have such energy that comes from those connections. But there's also a part of me that needs that one-to-one or that one-to-few in order to really feel like I have been heard and that I have heard others. I do want to direct you over to that live feed, and I'll see if I can actually create the link in the show notes. I think I can do a Facebook link to that video so you guys can check it out too. So, and honestly, I think, I'll let you watch the video, but what came out of those two experiences with those big events that I went to was actually recognizing that I'm kind of proud of myself. Actually, I'm really proud of myself. What Mari and I are creating with the Shine Retreat is something that is exactly that. It is an intimate gathering of women, both introverts and extroverts, and folks that, want that connection but are a little bit unsure of how to go about creating in their lives, or they have those connections but they're needing to slow down for themselves. So I really, really encourage you guys, if you are interested in attending, please do pop over to shineretreatforwomen.com to get registered, because the discounted price is effective until the end of March. So I am super excited that you are just part of this community and that you're part of my community. And I appreciate all your support and your encouragement as I navigate this podcasting journey. And I'm just very, very honored and privileged to get to know all of you as well. So from the bottom of my heart, I have so much gratitude. I thank you for letting me come into your worlds and into your hearts and to get to know you more through your stories. And I look forward to connecting with you all soon. And lastly, before I forget, make sure that you head over to amberhawley.com/herlifeunscripted for that freebie. I've got the link in the show notes, but I really, really want you guys to be able to take advantage of that because I'm going to do the same thing. It sounds amazing. So awesome, you guys. Have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you next week.
Want to learn about the latest retreats, workshops, and speaking events hosted by Anna? Head over to herlifeunscripted.com to get in on all the juicy details. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast so we can continue to grow our amazing audience. Lastly, be sure and send in your voice feedback via the SpeakPipe app or to Anna@herlifeunscripted.com. We can't wait to hear from you.